Carol, I was going to remind everyone of our holiday gathering. It's December 1st at St. John's United Methodist Church. And we will have refreshments and a time to see people in person again. So, and as Carol said, the invitation went out today by email. And also remind you of our community service project. It's the same as we had last year, the District 7 Nurses Emergency Fund. And you can send checks made out to the League of Women Voters, to Carol Gert, our treasurer, to the post office box, or bring it with you to our gathering. Okay, so we're very pleased to have Mary Kate Brown with us tonight. She has been with the Madison County Emergency Management Agency since 2010 and been the deputy director since 2012. Okay. She also serves the agency as the public information officer and holds several certificates through the state of Illinois and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So in addition to working for the Emergency Management Agency, Mary Kate serves on the board of the Madison County Local Emergency Planning Committee as secretary and treasurer, and she lives in Alton with her family. And I'm very glad to have you with us. I must admit, I really don't know much about how your agency functions. So,
well, thank you for having me. I'm gonna try and I guess share my screen here, and bear with me. I'm at home. So my husband works from home a couple days a week, so I'm on his setup right now. So hopefully it works. I've got just a little slideshow with just some information to talk about here. Let me see if I can go share screen. Screen one. And share. Okay, is that working?
yes.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So as she said, my name is Mary Kate Brown. I'm sorry, I'm also like trying to figure out which screen to talk to. So if I'm not looking at you guys, I'm sorry. My name is Mary Kate Brown. I'm the Deputy Director in Emergency Management. And as she said in her introduction, I've been there for many years now. I actually started out as a secretary there, and then I've been deputy director, I've been interim director, so I've kind of filled all the different roles that are there. Currently, our staff that's paid is our 3-person staff. We've got our director, Frederick Patterson, myself, and a logistics coordinator, and his name is Matthew Bogard. Our office is located in Wood River. So we are actually in the old Wood River Hospital building. And that was, our portion of the building was renovated completely in around 2011. And we moved into that building, and we have a big emergency operations center, as well as a 8-bay garage that holds lots and lots of equipment for us. So this is just our mission statement. This is kind of a little bit just in a blurb of what we do, but we always joke and tell people that we're the Walmart for their disaster. We try to be the agency that coordinates everything in a disaster, whether it's a large scale disaster, small scale disaster. It can be something as big as the Edwardsville tornado, where we were the lead coordinator on that, or it can be as small as, you know, there's a tanker truck rollover where there's, you know, hundreds of gallons of diesel fuel. And not that that's a small incident, but compared to, you know, flattening a building, it's small. So but we always try and approach every incident in kind of the same mindset. In addition to our 3 paid staff, we have a roster of volunteers that we heavily rely on, and they are all like credentialed, background checked. We have 33 of them. They help out immensely. They go on responses with us. Everyone's like had the same levels of training. So we heavily rely on those volunteers, and many of them are also like firemen. We've got a couple that are former nurses. So those volunteers really help us out as well, which also covers, which also covers the CERT team, also runs out of the Madison County EMA office. CERT being Community Emergency Response Team. We have a instructor that comes in, and it's a week-long class. It's a great class, and you basically learn all these things that you can see here on the screen. And then at the end of the week, they do a big full-scale final exercise, and then basically send people on their way so that they can go out into their community, so that when disasters strike, you know, the more self-reliant people can be in a disaster, the better for all of us first responders. So we always encourage people to, you know, have your emergency kits in your home, have things like that. Ready.gov is a great resource for that, but we also encourage people that can, when these classes are available, to take those, because they are free of charge or federally grant funded. And then this, I know this is being recorded and you guys can get this information off this, but this is the email address if anyone's interested in that CERT program, and we can get you in contact with our instructor. Another big thing that we do, so to explain kind of, because I know this was one of the questions that I think Carol had said people were wondering. So our funding, we are under the county. So the county has different departments, obviously, and some are elected official departments. We fall under the county board. So the county board is our boss, essentially. We fall under county board chairman Prinzler. And then our funding is half county funding and half federal grant funding that is filtered through the state. So each year we have an emergency management preparedness grant that's filtered through FEMA that allows us to claim reimbursement for our operating costs. And that kind of all came out via Homeland Security, FEMA. A lot of things came out after 9/11. And they've continued to see the value in that program, and they continue to run it annually. But part of what we do with the training and exercises, we're required to do them to keep up with the grant funding. But then we also go above and beyond, and we have a lot of different partnerships. Earlier this year, we did a tabletop exercise where we simulated an earthquake that damaged some facilities containing hazardous materials. And we actually worked with a company called Green Plains in Madison, Illinois. And we've done a lot of things with Phillips 66 too. We do a lot of stuff with the refinery. We do a lot of stuff with the railroads, specifically regularly with Norfolk Southern. We work with St. Louis Regional Airport regularly, and also Winchester, and it used to be Olin, now it's Wieland Brass. So basically all of those big industry partners, we try to maintain good relationships and contacts with them, because it's pretty easy in a place like that for a big disaster to happen. You don't want it to, but those places kind of lend themselves to having that possibility. So we maintain those relationships with those folks as well as all the local hospitals. We work with the health department a lot. We played a big part in the COVID response by distributing personal protection gear, masks, gloves, gowns, things like that to healthcare providers when they were delivered through FEMA. Code Red. So, and everybody's on a screen. Normally this is the part where I say, who's heard of Code Red? But you guys are all on a screen. So Code Red, we got Code Red out of the need for the county to have a mass notification system. We got it shortly after I started with Madison County, and we've had it ever since. And the big thing that we encourage people to do, there's a few facets to the system. One is that it's a mass notification system. So everyone that has a landline phone is automatically in the Madison County 911 database. So we have access to the 911 database, and it has been uploaded into the Code Red system. So every business, household, school, etc., that's in that system is going to get a call when we send out emergency information. However, a lot of people, myself and my husband included, don't have landlines nowadays. They have cell phones. So we're constantly encouraging people to sign up to opt in to receive these alerts, and the information on how to sign up is there. There's a few different ways to do it, but people with cell phones have to opt in to get those emergency alerts. The other facet of the system is the weather warnings, which is what most people are familiar with. So Code Red will send an alert out for your registered address, and that if your address falls within the polygon that's been issued by the National Weather Service. So if your address comes up in the polygon for a tornado warning, you will get a phone call to whatever number, or text or email to whatever mode of communication you've signed up for. And we really encourage people to do it because it's a great program, and it's free for our residents to use. And I always say, because people say, oh, I have a weather radio. I think that this is better. I'm not saying don't also have a weather radio, but this is a more targeted alert, so that, for instance, like a weather radio, I live in Alton. I had a coworker that lived in Highland. So that's over an hour away. I don't necessarily want to get their severe thunderstorm warning for Highland if I'm in Alton in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. So, I mean, I do because it's my job, but other people probably would not appreciate that. Whereas this is only going to call you if you're in the direct path of the storm. So it's a really good thing. We encourage people to sign up for that. So the next several slides, I'll just be brief. I just have several people always kind of ask, we have like millions of dollars worth of equipment stored in a couple different county garages. Most of our equipment has been purchased via grants or gifted to us by agencies. We have some equipment that's been gifted from like Phillips 66, like the bigger industry partners. So they've donated some things like that. This is just one piece of our equipment. We have a mass casualty trailer. This is something that, like, when the tornado hit in Edwardsville and we weren't sure how many people were trapped in the building, this was deployed. So it's basically just a supplement to our local fire EMS response, so that if we have that mass casualty or potential mass casualty event, we have all this extra equipment. This is our sandbag machine, which this was purchased through a grant. We have one, St. Clair County has one, I believe Monroe County has one. There's several places throughout the region that have them. We have certainly got our use out of this. We use it every time the water comes up in Alton, like almost every single time. It's been used many times. It's also been deployed, since it's a regional asset, to other counties that have needed it. But it's pretty neat. The top there, they put sand in, and we basically are able to just run the sand through a hydraulic system, and it makes sandbags much faster than the old-fashioned shovel way. And usually when we go out to these sites to run it, we set it up, we stay there for the duration, but we often get people from prisons, from the swap, or either prisoners from state prisons will come and they will help fill sandbags, or we have people that are in like the swap program, the work release program with Madison County. They also come out and help sandbag during flood season. Just a couple more things of equipment. This is our cooling and heating unit. And we also have generators to run this, but this has been deployed several times as well. Most recently, we've had, like in the summer, we had a nursing home whose backup generator failed, and they did not want to have to move everyone. Obviously, they would if they had to, but we were able to cool the entire nursing home by deploying this equipment rather than having to stretch our EMS capabilities and all of our paramedics to move the entire facility to another location. But we've used this several times. It heats and cools, so, and it's a pretty neat thing. And this was also a federal grant funded piece of equipment. This is our pet trailer. For an example, I don't know how many of you saw in St. Clair County with the recent flash flooding they had over there. They had to relocate 2 different animal shelters that were in waist deep water. A couple of them, unfortunately, they lost some of their animals. But that's what this is for. That's what basically it's, you know, if we have to close down an actual animal shelter type situation, or it's for when people are displaced from their homes. And most of the time when American Red Cross sets up shelters, they aren't able to always allow pets in. So this would be a temporary housing solution for those displaced pets. And this is the last one besides my contact information. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. So this is our command post, and this is, people like see this out a lot and they're always like, what is this? Homeland Security, all this kind of stuff. So this one was actually purchased. This is one of those things that came about as like a direct result of 9/11 and Homeland Security being a thing. So they purchased a lot of these throughout the country. And right after ours was purchased, it was deployed to Hurricane Katrina. That was its first deployment. But locally, it gets deployed a lot, and we use it on scene. It's full of computers and printers and whiteboards, and there's a phone in there. It's all internet capable. There's a camera on the back of it to do surveillance. So a lot of times the SWAT team will request use of this, and they'll deploy it on scene for like a standoff situation. So it gets used a lot, but that's always out and about. So if you ever see that anywhere, that's our office. Sorry, my dog keeps barking. I apologize. And then there's my contact information for any questions or anything that you can think of after today. If there's any need to contact me, always feel free. I'm always available for that. And with that, I'm sure there's probably some questions. So are questions going to be listed in the chat, or do you guys want to ask them directly?
Probably ask them directly.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna stop my share so that way I can see everybody. Okay. There we go.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
So do you service just Madison County, or it sounds like your stuff goes all over the place for Katrina and stuff? How does that work?
So we service just Madison County, except for so that was like a one-off with that with that situation, with that piece of equipment. But so we're part of what's called STARS, which is St. Louis Area Regional Response System. So a lot of our equipment is funded federally through STARS. So if our equipment is funded through a regional thing, then we have to be able to regionally deploy it, basically. So technically we serve just Madison County, but we have several memorandums of understanding in place with other counties for that equipment. So like if a neighboring county needed our sandbag machine, we would deploy it, and then they would run it and use it. We wouldn't have to stay there, but there's agreements in place for, and same goes with us. If our sandbag machine is down, we can call St. Clair County and they'll bring theirs over for us to use.
So how does it work for prioritization if both of the counties need it?
So if both of the counties would need it and everybody's out, it would just be who's more of a life safety issue at that point. Generally, when we're sandbagging in Alton, luckily, there's not a whole lot of life safety issue. It's usually that it's that downtown business district. So it's, you know, trying to protect infrastructure and property. Whereas say somebody in a neighboring county says our levee's about to burst and all these people have to be evacuated, they're obviously going to get priority.
Yeah.
So what is the relationship to cities and towns emergency management?
Sure. So we have in every jurisdiction throughout the county, we have what we call, excuse me, an ESDA coordinator. So that's like our contact at the city, and they create their own citywide plans. But they're like our direct contact. So in Edwardsville, it's actually the fire chief. So James Whiteford is our contact there. And then he normally will have a secondary contact as well. And it happens to be the deputy fire chief, Brendan McKee in Edwardsville. But some towns we have the mayor is actually the contact because they have a volunteer fire department or, you know, that just ends up being the best contact. But we are on a regular basis communicating with each city. We held regular jurisdictional update meetings where we get together and talk about issues that they have in their communities. We do exercises with them a lot. Just a couple weeks ago, we were at the Troy school board meeting because they're thinking about doing a full-scale active shooter exercise. So they wanted us involved with that. So we're pretty involved with the cities.
How do they determine who has priority when something happens, like the tornado? Is that Madison County or is that Edwardsville or Glen Carbon?
Okay, so one of the things we always say is we'd like to say disasters begin and end locally. So each disaster is going to start with the tornado, for instance. That's Edwardsville's first on scene. So that's Edwardsville's scene. It's within their city limits, and we are there to support them. So at no point did we like take over that whole scene. We were like at the request of their fire chief. So all of our equipment that they wanted there, that's like at their request. And that's kind of the way it just operates on any scene. We try and let the locals handle it. And then of course, if it's an unincorporated, then it's our venue because, you know, then it's the county. But we almost, and I would say 90% of the time, if it's bad enough that we're brought in, they're asking us like, okay, hey, we need a break. You come in and run things for a while, because it's easy to get overwhelmed very quickly, especially in something as big as the tornado was. So, because we had people from all over the place for that.
What about the fuel spill in Cahokia Creek? Would Edwardsville be the first agency on the scene?
So yes, so the Madison County Hazmat team also runs out of our office, and the Madison County LEPC the local emergency planning committee that I serve as the secretary treasurer on is basically kind of the county oversight for the EPA. So when that happened, Edwardsville, yes, is going to be, because that's just how dispatch works. So they're going to be dispatching the fire department. And then from there, our hazmat team was notified. And when they got on scene, it was obviously, we deployed the equipment we had, but we also, when something of that magnitude happened, of course, the EPA's called them right away too. So, because that was such a big incident. So, the state and federal EPA were both part of that. We had the command vehicle down there for that. And then we were part of the, basically we served as kind of oversight to make sure, along with the EPA, that BP did their job on cleaning up and mitigating the spill, which, I mean, it's ongoing still. We just had a meeting about it a couple weeks ago, and they're now trying to, I guess they had a temporary road and to get down there to do work. Now they're shoring it up or something like that. But yeah, again, but in answer to your question, I think, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but it would have been Edwardsville first on scene, and then the chain of command kind of goes from there depending on how big or small the incident is.
So is there, well, you mentioned that STAR thing, is there a lot of cooperation with St. Louis area and here, since it's really close, except for a river? So.
Right, yeah, we're all members of that STARS, which is St. Louis County, St. Louis City, St. Charles County. They're all members of that, and so we share assets back and forth. And all of our fire departments that are in Madison County are in an organization called MABUS, which is basically mutual aid. And there are the ones that run right along the river on the other side, like Blackjack and like in West Dalton area and all that. They are all part of that as well. So yeah, we work with them a lot.
Okay, and then how do
I have a
you?
question about the sirens. During the tornado incident, I live just a couple miles off of 143. And when there's a storm, I don't know who's got the lead on that, if that's the local communities or if that's countywide. But when in that condition with doors and windows closed and thunder and everything going on, you could not hear those sirens at all. Is that why maybe Code Red is supposed to be a backup to that?
So the county does not own or operate any sirens. Those are all individually owned and operated by cities, and not every city in the county has them. So fun fact, you're not supposed to hear them from inside your house. No one ever knows that. They're supposed to be outdoor weather warning sirens. And that's the problem with sirens is, first of all, they're triggered by a human. So a person has to physically see that there's a weather warning, and then they have to physically flip the switch. It's normally at a dispatch that's manned 24/7, which, I'm not saying they're not great to have, because they are, but there's a reason why not every community has them. For instance, I live in Alton. With our rolling hills, you'd never hear them from most of the homes that are up in the bluffs and stuff like that. So in answer to your question, the county, when we bought Code Red, added on that weather facet to it because we knew that not every community could maintain, afford all that kind of stuff with the weather sirens. So,
okay.
But as far as not hearing them or not being, that's your city.
And we're not supposed to. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, and then you have these trained volunteers. How are they used?
So we run a couple different programs that are regularly manned by volunteers. We have it's called the rehab program, and we go out on like big structure fires with the local fire departments. Like we'll get paged out, and we have, so the organization that all the fire departments are members of, they donated to us an ambulance, an old ambulance, and we've like outfitted it basically. And we come and set up and do vitals signs for the firemen, like when they're on a break. We have cooling chairs and fans and things like that, basically provide them relief on structure fire scenes that are in extreme weather conditions, which happens around here a lot, unfortunately. So our volunteers run that program, which is really neat that they do that. They also, many of them are trained to like be in the emergency operations center when we're activated, so they know how to fill out all the necessary FEMA forms and all that kind of stuff, to do incident action plans. They deploy and move equipment for us a lot. Several of them have their Class D driver's license, so that they are able to actually drive the command post and deploy that for us. So they're a big help, because with a staff of 3 for a county of 270,000 people, we can't possibly do everything without them. So
my question was going to ask how many people you have on staff, and you just said 3.
3.
You said the county board is your boss, or the chairman,
The
Princeler.
chairman.
So are you appointed by him? How can you be dismissed? Does the board oversee your positions, the paid positions, or?
So our director is appointed by, well, it's complicated, but up until recently, he was appointed by the county board chairman. And I believe the state statute with EMA. So basically, emergency management agencies have to exist. It's a state and federally mandated thing. Now, it doesn't say how many staff you have to have. You just have to have a director, basically, in that statute. And the county board chairman does appoint the director. So they are at the whim of the county board chairman. Basically, they can be they're appointed and can be let go basically without cause. And then myself and Matt, we are actually union employees. So we were hired by, I've had, I think this is my 5th director that we're on. So I was not hired by the current director. I was hired many directors ago, and as was Matt. So I guess that kind of answers your question. It's
Yes, it does.
complicated.
That helps. Yes, it helps. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mary Kay?
I was still a little confused of the relationship between the emergency management people and FEMA and the Red Cross. Exactly how does that work?
Between us and FEMA.
Yes,
So FEMA is federal level emergency management. There's also a state level emergency management, and then we're county. So ultimately, during an incident, we like to use up all of our own resources first. Once we deplete those, we go to the state. And if there's something that the state can't provide, then we go to the federal level.
Can they come back with these?
yes.
So that's kind of how that works. And FEMA really doesn't step in until we get like a federal disaster declaration. So yeah, I mean, we have to meet a certain threshold of monetary damage basically for FEMA to step in. But the partnership between us and the state is kind of constant. We're in kind of, we're almost always letting our regional state coordinator know what's going on and that kind of thing, just in case things do escalate.
So, and then the Red Cross, you call them in for help.
Yes, so the Red Cross, they would be considered a nonprofit agency, and they are we have a what's called MOU, a memorandum of understanding with them, that when we have to activate a shelter in the county, they are our call. So they also assist residents throughout the county with vouchers and things like that when they're displaced from their homes, whether it be from flooding or fire. That's a program that they run. I'm actually a registered Red Cross volunteer, so is my coworker Matt, so that in our spare time we do things with the Red Cross too. So we utilize them a lot, and it's not just where we use United Way, Salvation Army. We work with all of those. Those are called volunteer organizations active in disaster. So, sorry, there's a lot of jargon.
So, okay, thank you.
I just got a quick one.
Oh.
Brad, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's-
You said you've served under several directors. Is that a reflection on the fact that they're appointed, or are most of them come and gone because they moved on their own? I mean, to me, that's a problem with continuity. If you
It's
keep getting
appointed.
new.
It's appointed. And I'll leave it at that.
Is any other questions for Mary Kay?
Well, one of my concerns is that Madison County has all those refineries. You
Mhm.
have specific plans for disasters for them. I mean,
Yes.
that
Yes.
has the potential for quite a lot of problems.
Yes, we exercise and work with them regularly. We just did one recently that had some pretty nasty stuff on site, and we kind of ran. We have people that we work with that do like air modeling too, and the computers, so we can see which way like a hazardous substance is going to go. So we exercise that with them, and they are all also required by law to have certain plans and things like that in place. And I will say they are, and knock on wood, but our refineries and things around here are really tip top on their programs, especially Phillips 66. I think everybody is always like, oh, there's so much that could go wrong there, but every year they bring out all of the first response agencies and go over every single piece of equipment in that place and tours, and they're very very on top of it, and they have their own hazmat team just for their facility, which is just kind of mind-blowing. There's they have a big budget. So, but they put it to good use. So we do work with them a lot. And yeah.
So what is the recent interest or questions about the active shooter program?
So we've done some exercises, and when I say we do exercises, we help write them for different cities and school districts and stuff like that, because not everybody's written an exercise.
Oh, sure.
And that's just something that we do and we're trained to do. And there's just an interest in schools to practice active shooter training, which is sad, but it's a necessity these days. And I'd say our first big exercise we did active shooter was probably the Roxana School District, and that was probably going on 8 years now. So, and we just, it's just a regular thing that the schools are required to practice it on their own anyway, but there's been several that like they want to take that extra step to have that extra discussion with their staff and then it's the local police department and local fire department are involved, and yeah, and that's how we get involved.
So do they also, a little bit, it sounds like I have nightmares about accidents or something. Madison County is severely undermined. Is that considered a problem for you all or not?
So that's, we have what's called a hazard mitigation plan that we compiled, and then we have to update it every 5 years, and that's a FEMA requirement. And that is one of the things that is listed, as far as basically we go through all the different man-made natural disasters and the risk factors for the county, and that is on the list.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think fortunately there hasn't been a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's more of a concern, you know, with soil shifting with earthquakes.
Right.
So-
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Mary Kate?
Well, we can all sleep better tonight.
Very good.
well, that's good at least. I feel like people always ask me, they're like, how do you sleep at night knowing all the stuff that goes on? And I'm like, you know.
Well, I meant that in a positive, way that,
Oh, no, I know. But I'm just laughing because people ask me that all the time. And I'm like, yeah. Like it's the same way with, you know, police officers and firemen and all, like,
Right.
it's just our job.
Okay.
But I
Well-
appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. I hope it was helpful. And but like I said, in that slideshow, because I think this is being recorded and it's going to be distributed. Yes, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so then all my contact information and the information about Code Red and everything's all in there. So feel free if you think of any questions down the road, but don't hesitate to call. I'm always around and available. So they haven't gotten rid of me yet.
So, well, thank you for spending, part of your evening with us. And as I said, I really didn't know much about how your agency functions. So now I feel better informed. So
Oh,
thank
that's great. Good. Yeah, we kind of hide out down there in Woodford, you know, and then end up on CNN when bad stuff happens. So,
you.
so I guess it's good to get to know who we are before the bad stuff happens. So, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you very much,
All
Mary.
right. No problem. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.